Hello SJDs. We're going to talk just briefly about how to run a meeting. So you of course are going to be the chair for your state governing board and your state membership meetings. So we're going to talk just a little bit about what things you need to do for meetings. So you will need to run 2 state governing board meetings. Our operating code says one of these needs to be in person, but of course we have suspended that for now until we get back to normal with the COVID stuff. Remember that in the operating code it also tells you that you need to notify your state governing board 3 weeks prior to the meeting, and 2 weeks prior to the meeting you need to notify your membership that there is a state governing board taking place so that they can talk to their representatives. You also need to hold 1 general membership meeting, remembering that you also need to give them information about your budget, your income, your expenses, and your general balance. Okay, so that's information in the operating code where it tells you what you need to do. This meeting needs to be publicized 3 weeks prior to the meeting with an agenda for the meeting. Okay, so our sort of byword for this part is that this needs to be timely. You need to notify your membership in a timely manner and your state governing board in a timely manner. And you also need to set an agenda. All right, the agenda needs to be set in advance. You need to have it set in advance so that you can prepare your board. And part of that is oftentimes we send a draft agenda to the board just asking if they have any issues or things that we need to consider for the agenda. This doesn't mean that all these need to be put on the agenda, but it just gives us a chance to see what they're thinking and see what they're concerned about and what their constituency may have communicated to them. So setting that agenda, being thoughtful is our word for the agenda, about what we're doing with our agenda, because we need to think about our time. So we have allotted a certain amount of time for our meeting, and we need to think about what things on our agenda might be hot button items that we'll need to discuss, what things are easy and will only take a few minutes for us to just say, oh yes, we talked about this before and now we just need to vote on this motion. So think about your agenda in terms of how much you think you can get done, and put some times next to the items on your agenda so that you can stick to those times when you're during your meeting. So your meeting doesn't run over time. People are busy and you need to really be thoughtful and respectful of their time as well. Okay, so preparing your board, getting their input on items for the meeting. If you have things that you think are going to be hot button items, maybe doing some research ahead of time. Maybe forming a committee and asking them to do some research, or somehow thinking about ways that you can reduce the controversy with data and information. Okay, during your meeting, make sure that you have a parking lot. So I usually use a visual parking lot. You can buy those giant sticky notes that you can put on the wall, and if discussions get off topic, you can put those discussion topics in a parking lot so that your state governing board members can see that you're thinking about them, considering them, and that they're not going away. You are considering those. Okay, you want to maximize and focus on the mission of NAJ during your meeting. So talking about those educational opportunities, those opportunities for professional development, those opportunities for promoting gymnastics within your community. So those, remember, are our mission for NAJ, and those are the things that we want to focus on in our agendas. Okay? The next component we're going to talk about is time. So we talked about it a little bit briefly up here, but that is something that we want to remain firm on. We don't want to use people's time unwisely. We want to make sure we can get through our business. Okay, so again, timing discussions. So making sure that everyone is able to be heard, but you also are asking them to be concise with their statements. So if you have one of those topics that you know people are maybe divided on or they just need more information on, make sure that everyone gets a chance to speak. And then open it up for rebuttal and allowing each person just one time to rebut. And I usually use a visual timer. So again, with my visual parking lot, I use a visual timer. I have some small hourglass timers that you can get them for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, okay? So everyone can see the timer, and the person who's speaking can also see the timer, so that gives them the opportunity to see how much time is left and to be concise in their statements. All right. Remaining firm on your timing, and sometimes if you use a timer, it gets a little less personal because it's the timer that's making them stop, not you, right? So that's kind of helpful. All right, making sure you also have considered the time in your agenda, and if you run into a topic that you just cannot get past and people cannot make a decision, oftentimes it's because you don't have enough information. So maybe you need to refer that to a committee, get some more research, and see if you can't gather enough information to make everybody comfortable with a decision. All right, protocols. So this is a larger topic and something that maybe you need more training on if you aren't used to meetings and you haven't chaired a meeting before. So I do have a Google Classroom started where we can there's thousands of YouTube videos on parliamentary procedure. So I will put up a selection of those that will help sort of walk you through these. We do refer to Robert's Rules. If we don't have guidance in our documents, then we refer back to Robert's Rules for guidance. And that's where we get most of our parliamentary procedures. So you want to make sure you recognize speakers so that one person is speaking at a time. You want to make sure that you understand how to consider and pass motions during your meeting, and calling the meeting to order and adjourning the meeting. And always when you're talking about protocols at a meeting, the thing that you are looking for is to have equity for all members in that meeting so that everyone feels heard, everyone feels like they had a chance to contribute, and everyone feels like their viewpoint was considered. Okay, so that's something that makes everybody feel warm and fuzzy after a meeting, is when you have achieved giving everyone that feeling of equity. Okay? All right, minutes. We need to have a reliable secretary taking minutes for us. We need to make sure that when we're working with motions, oftentimes we use a little piece of paper that just says I move, and then the motion is written out by the person making the motion, oftentimes with help from the rest of the board, so that the motion is worded correctly. You can hand that to the secretary, so the secretary isn't struggling in all the conversation to get the motion correctly recorded in the minutes. It's already recorded, and she can just have that piece of paper, and that really facilitates things and helps get rid of confusion. So you want to publish your minutes in a timely manner. You're first going to send them out to your state governing board so they can make corrections in case something maybe was miscommunicated. Then you're going to send copies to your RJD and to your state governing board and place them on the website. And when you do your general membership meeting, those minutes from that meeting also should be available for your members so that they can see that your transactions and your business is transparent. Okay, and our watchword for our minutes is we want them to be accurate. Okay, so that's just a quick run through. A couple other things right here. We want to make sure that as a chairperson, we create a positive culture for our board so they can feel valued, they can feel heard, they can feel like things are, like discussions are equitable. Everyone has a place. Okay, you want to make sure you facilitate civil and productive discussion. Sometimes this is difficult when people are very stuck in their viewpoints. So this again sometimes requires some outside work before the meeting or after the meeting. So that's something to really think about and work towards. And you want to make sure that you are maintaining order. Okay, we don't want to have side conversations going on, which sometimes happens when people don't feel like they're able to be heard. So we want to make sure that we can, cut down on those. And we want to make sure that cell phones and computers are used only for notes, or cell phones are put away while we're having a meeting. And I think these are things that you should discuss maybe before you start your meeting, what your expectations are for behaviors during the meeting. Okay, and sometimes the formal protocols that we use in Robert's Rules can really cut down on hurt feelings or people's perceptions of what goes on in a meeting. So I would definitely, even though you know all these people on the state governing board and you feel like you're friendly and things are going to be easy, I would encourage you to be very formal to start out with and run your meetings that way. I think sometimes it's the best way. So, all right, there's going to be more information for you if you need it. Just let me know, and thank you.